Welcome back to History Radio, the place where the curtains of history are drawn back and stories long thought dormant suddenly echo with urgency. Today, we listen to a silent tragedy, a 4-century-old puzzle that sits at the very dawn of the New World. We're talking about the lost colony of Roanoke. We've explored the hubris of Caligula and shuddered at the cosmic destruction of Tunguska. Now, we confront a different kind of riddle, one defined by humanity, power, and an inexplicable disappearance, located at the intersection of hope and absolute despair. Let's journey back to the year 1587. This was an era of colossal dreams, of ships sailing hard against the horizon in an unrelenting quest for expansion. Queen Elizabeth I was staking everything on one mission: to establish England's first permanent foothold in America. Roanoke Island, off the coast of modern-day North Carolina, was the chosen ground. This was more than a voyage. It was a declaration. 115 people, brave men, resilient women, and innocent children, landed on the sandy, forested island. They carried not just tools and seeds, but the entire future of an empire. Among them was Virginia Dare, the first English child born on American soil. A brilliant symbol of a beginning, but also the last flicker of light we would ever see from the colony. The Roanoke settlement was meant to be a seed of hope, but that seed was abandoned before it could even take root. Only weeks after arriving, Governor John White realized the harsh truth. They would not survive the winter. Supplies were critically low, planting had failed, and relations with the surrounding indigenous tribes quickly worsened, especially after a brief bloody clash with the Second tribe. In desperation, the colonists forced White to make a heartbreaking decision. He had to return to England for urgent supplies and reinforcements. He made a solemn vow: "I will return only a few months from now." He left his family, his infant granddaughter, and 115 lives with a single promise and a code. If they were forced to leave the settlement, they were to carve the name of their new location onto a tree or post. And if they left in danger, they were to add a Maltese cross next to the name. White departed with a soul burdened by fear, but the moment he arrived back in England, destiny tragically intervened. In 1588, the devastating Spanish Armada was launched, aimed at invading England. Every resource, every ship, every sailor, including the vessels White needed for his return, was mobilized for the national defense. That war, though ultimately an English victory, caused White's return trip to be cruelly deferred, not for a few months, but for 3 agonizing years. Picture those 3 winters: the creeping dread, the starvation, and the profound isolation that gripped those 115 souls. Their hope dwindled daily, hourly. They were utterly abandoned. In August of 1590, John White finally returned to Roanoke. He landed with a flicker of hope, but the island greeted him with a chilling silence. The entire settlement had vanished. No sounds, no smoke from cooking fires, no signs of life whatsoever. He and his search party began their investigation. The scene was deeply unsettling. The colony was not ravaged. The houses had been dismantled in an orderly fashion, and heavy items had been carefully buried. This was not the scene of a sudden massacre. They had planned to relocate. And then, the only clue appeared, a whisper carved into the wood. On a fence post, they found one solitary, mysterious word: Croatoan. And on a large tree nearby, simply 3 letters: 0. The most crucial detail was this: no Maltese cross symbol was carved alongside the names. This gave White one fragile ray of hope. His people had left voluntarily and were not in distress. Croatoan was the name of a nearby island, modern-day Hatteras Island, and the name of a friendly indigenous tribe the English knew. White believed his family had moved there, but once again, fate played its hand. Severe weather and a terrified, rebellious crew forced White to leave immediately. He never got the chance to search Croatoan Island. The 115 Roanoke colonists vanished, leaving behind one of history's greatest enduring puzzles, forever known as the Lost Colony. For over 4 centuries, scholars have proposed countless theories to solve their fate. The massacre theory was one of the earliest explanations, arguing the community was attacked and wiped out by a hostile tribe like the Powhatan. Yet, that theory clashes directly with the evidence. At the site, no bodies, no blood, and the orderly dismantling of the homes. An unexpected massacre leaves chaos, not neatly packed goods. The dispersion and disaster theory suggests the settlers, fragmented into small groups to forage, eventually succumbing to disease, starvation, or a catastrophic tropical storm common to the Outer Banks. However, the most strongly supported idea today is the integration theory, rooted in the logic of survival. After 3 years of abandonment and facing certain death by starvation, the colonists were forced to find a means to survive by assimilating into the local, friendly indigenous tribes. They became indigenous. What is the evidence? Later colonial reports, like those from John Smith, recorded instances of light-haired, light-eyed individuals living amongst the local tribes. More importantly, recent DNA studies and archaeological research have found genetic markers consistent with early English settlers among the modern-day Lumbee and Hatteras tribal populations. Modern mapping also suggests an internal relocation to Site X further inland, perhaps seeking better resources and protection. Roanoke may not have been an annihilation, but an absorption into the native culture. They didn't vanish. They became part of America. The Roanoke story stands as one of history's most profound cautionary tales. It reminds European powers of the fragility of ambition and life in the New World. It is an eternal mystery, the collective whisper of a community that had to choose between certain death and cultural assimilation. So, what truth convinces you the most? Did the 115 settlers survive and integrate, or were they erased from history altogether? Tell us your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to History Radio as we explore the next great enigma